I'm making a survival crafting game about terraforming Mars. So far, every time I sit down to work on the crafting system, I end up adding something else instead, like mining, a power system, terraforming, craters, lakes, and even autonomous rovers and drivable vehicles. It's like sitting down to do your homework, but suddenly feeling the urge to clean your room, and then the entire house. I've been putting it off for so long. Why, you ask? Because I have to dive into skills I don't have much experience with, mainly balancing and most importantly, the final boss of game development, UI design. You see, last time I tried designing a UI, let's say things didn't go well, so this is going to be interesting. But I think it's finally time to turn this into a proper survival crafting game. Buckle up, this is going to be one packed update. Let me explain how the whole crafting part of the game will work. It all starts with resources. You find them, mine them for ores, and bring those ores back. For now, there will be 3 different machines that you can use to turn these ores into something useful. The first one is a printer. You feed it materials and it prints the machine or building using power. Notice I said materials instead of just ores. Why? That's where our second machine comes in, the crafting station. This will also take ores and turn them into useful materials like wires, alloys, and terraformation cores. And finally, we have the refinery. This machine refines the ores into more advanced forms, like ingots, to be used in bigger and more complex machinery. Together, these machines will form the foundation of the first version of crafting in the game. Let's start with the printer. Adding it to the game was easy, but now I need a user interface so players can interact with it and print machines. I want my UIs to be as simple and intuitive as possible. The only thing holding me back from achieving this is, well, my lack of UI skills. I came up with a few versions, but this one seems to be the best so far. When you press the use key, the UI opens, and I added a smooth camera animation to make it feel like you are looking through Blossom's eyes. You switch between categories using the keys, and you can browse through the blueprints as well. Like everything else in the game, this UI supports both keyboard and controller input. In the center, you will see a big 3D model of the selected blueprint. There are 2 reasons for this. 1. I didn't want to make icons for every item in the game. 2. The 3D models look better than icons since they show details like power sockets, giving a more accurate preview of what you're printing. Now that the UI is done, it's time to create the actual printing system. The obvious approach is to display a silhouette of the machine you are placing. Most games use a grid-based placement system, but I decided to go with free movement instead. You can rotate the building, and once you're happy with the position, just press print. Of course, this looks a bit boring like that, so let's spice it up with some effects. Much better. At this point in development, my doorbell rang and I left the game running. When I come back, this was the situation I found myself in. That's when I realized a deconstruction function is definitely needed. It's funny how sometimes a little chaos actually pushes the game forward. I used the same method as printing, but in reverse to create the deconstruction function. When you deconstruct something you have printed, you get back all the materials you spent, except the power. While I was testing this and mass deconstructing all the powered off robots, my 6-year-old daughter walked in and looked at me in shock. She said, "Daddy, why are you breaking those poor robots?" I tried explaining that these were powered off units that needed to be recycled so they could be reused, but of course, she didn't buy it. Then she gave me an idea. At least give them a tombstone like a real person. As a responsible father, of course I immediately dismissed the idea and sent her off. Now, onto the crafting table. It works similarly to the printer, but the UI is slightly different. So far, I've only added a few materials that will be used in blueprints. You craft them the same way, but the difference is that you don't place them, they are created in place. I might add medium and large versions of the printer and crafting stations in the future for building bigger machinery. Now lastly, the refinery. You feed it 2 ores and it gives you a rod of the same resource. The medium refinery takes those rods and converts them into ingots. while the large refinery uses ingots to produce cores. As I mentioned earlier, these rods, ingots, and cores will be used for more complex and larger machinery. That's it for the crafting machinery. Which one do you think will be the most useful early on? By the way, the game is called Blossom, the Seed of Life, and if you're excited about it or want to support development, the best way to help is by adding it to your wishlist. It really makes a big difference, and you will also get notified about future playtests and demos. Link is in the description. While adding some blueprints and recipes, I realized I only have 3 resources so far: iron, copper and silica. So it's time to add a few more. Let's distribute them in the world and I'll show you how they work. This is aluminum. And this is silver. These clumps here are regolith. You don't need to mine them since they're basically Martian dirt. And finally, these big guys are nodes of the same resources. As you can see, they have a lot of smaller deposits clustered around them. Think of them as hitting the jackpot when you find a spot like this. If I try to mine it, it says I need a mining laser. What could that be? When mining any deposit, Blossom needs to channel her laser, consuming power every second. Harder resources take longer to mine and use more power, but Blossom can only mine smaller deposits. For the bigger ones, you will need mining lasers. There are 3 sizes: small, medium and large. Each size increases mining speed and allows you to mine larger deposits. The small and medium ones can be attached to rovers so you can move them around. Nodes contain a lot more ore than regular deposits, and in the future I will add large resource veins that will have even more. While the large one covers a big area and mines every deposit in its range. Imagine creating huge mining bases around these, only if we had a way to actually transport these to the main base. Now that the infrastructure is ready, it's time to add every machine I've made so far into the printer blueprints. So let's talk about progression and research in the game. You will start the game with an empty printer. To print stuff, you need to acquire blueprint disks and install them into the printer. There are 2 ways to find blueprint disks. The first one is through exploration. As you explore Mars, you will discover remnants of previous human expeditions scattered across the planet. Who knows what secrets these expeditions hold? Finding a blueprint disk in one could completely change your strategy. The second way is through research. This game is all about terraforming Mars through different stages: pressure, temperature, soil, oxygen, and eventually life. As you progress through these stages, you will gather data and unlock new blueprints. To manage this, I created a machine called the Terraform Monitor. Its main function is to show you the current status and terraforming stage, as well as provide data to create new blueprint disks. You will progress through these terraforming stages in a non-linear way, so if you notice a blueprint you really need, you can focus on that area until you unlock it. This was a lot of progress, but after adding so many features, things started breaking pretty fast. I can already see a big bug fixing session ahead. But before that, while playtesting everything together and constantly using those menus, I found myself getting frustrated. They weren't easy to use and felt a bit cluttered. So I spent some time sketching and came up with a new design. To me, this version looks way more functional and easier to digest. Since the crafting station uses the same menu, I updated that too. The Terraform Monitor UI, however, was a lot trickier to redo because it involves more items and has more clutter than the others. This version seems more streamlined. It's still not perfect, but I think I'm getting closer to something that works. I would really appreciate your thoughts on these, so let me know in the comments, as UI design is still a big challenge for me. By the way, we also have a Discord server where we chat about the game and anything games related in general. If you would like to join our growing community, you are more than welcome. The link is in the description. And that's it for this devlog. Now that crafting is done, I'm really close to creating a playtest version to get feedback on the game. If you are curious to see how all this crafting stuff plays out, make sure to wishlist the game on Steam. Your support makes a huge difference. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.